Ross Coulthart, News Nation's investigative journalist, has recently sat down to do another Ross Coulthart reality check, where this is basically his podcast, where he talks about all things extraterrestrial and things going on in the world of UFOs. And he did a more live action version of his podcast in front of a live audience where he spoke about many, many different things. And on the podcast, obviously, if you look down the bottom here, so we've got obviously the opener. He talks about why it's important to apply proper science methods to UFO issues. He talks about official deception going back decades. He talks about dismissive culture and how like people just don't talk about it, or it's a bit taboo to talk about. He also talked about his first ever experience. Now, I've listened to this entire podcast. It's well over an hour and 40 minutes long, so I'm not going to play all of it here, or we're going to be here forever, but I highly, highly recommend you go over to the News Nation YouTube channel and check out the full thing, especially to learn about Ross Coulthart's early days and what got him into this kind of topic. But what we're going to be talking about today from this podcast is actually the conversation that he had with a US Navy science and tech director about the UFO crash retrieval programs, his talk with David Grusch, who of course has become one of the biggest UFO whistleblowers in the past kind of decade, and also some questions from the audience. But let's get started.
But one of them I can name, because he authorised me to. He called me on an open line out of the blue, and I could barely believe who he was. Because if I was to think of the one person who I wanted to speak to me, it was him.
Ooh, here we go.
His name was Nat Kobitz. He was the US Navy's former long-time Director of Science and Technology Development, their chief R&D scientist, their chief geek.
Well, that's basically anyone that you want to talk to from any department on any level of company, really, isn't it? Because they're the people that would know about this stuff.
For many years, for over 30 years. He was a beautiful, wisecracking, 92-year-old Brooklyn Jewish scientist with a beautiful sense of humour. And sadly, when I caught up with him, he was dying from cancer.
Aww.
And fate dictated that I caught him at the perfect time. He was sitting in his Baltimore home, bored out of his brain, with too much time on his hands. And here was this Aussie journalist asking him about the work that he'd done as part of the greatest generation with the US Navy's R&D division. He was fiercely proud of what he achieved, and so he should be. And over several months, he finally opened up to me about what he was, on his own admission, read into. He was briefed on the program.
This is the stuff that we need to know about, and there are so many people that are yet to come forward who have been read into the program. Like, I'm thinking the likes of Elon Musk, definitely, probably Jeff Bezos, you know, the elites, probably even who owns Virgin, Richard Branson. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because he's got space stuff that goes on. People at NASA, you know, all these people read into these programs.
And he told me that he had been read into a classified program involving retrieved non-human technology.
Come on.
Recovered alien spacecraft. He eventually admitted that he was officially briefed that America had retrieved multiple non-human craft.
Wow.
And that he was aware there was a secret operation underway for decades, in his words, to undertake to reverse engineer them. He admitted that most of what he knew was effectively hearsay, although from some excellent official sources. This is something he'd been briefed into in his official capacity.
Well, exactly. So therefore he is a part of this program as well. So no matter who he talks to from within that same kind of program, it's like the Freemasons, for example. They do that secret handshake, and then they both know that they're Freemasons, so they can kind of openly talk about Freemasonry and stuff like that. Like, it's like that. They know that each other are read into the program, so they are going to talk about it, and you're not going to like lie about what you're doing because it'll all be fact-checked, you know? This is mad.
He did admit that on one occasion he was flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, literally taken deep underground, taken to a secure room and shown what looked like some kind of bulkhead from a craft which he believed was constructed in a way that defied conventional explanation. The craft's skin and inner bulkhead were composites bonded at an atomic level.
Wow.
He suspected it was non-human intelligence technology. But being the scientist he was, infuriatingly, he wouldn't say to me it was alien tech. He would just say it was something he had never seen that any human could make. Nat was a patriot. He was a decent, honourable public servant. He respected the fact that this program was being kept secret for a reason. But as a scientist, he also recognised that the American public, and especially Congress, had the right to know what was being done with taxpayer dollars.
Damn straight.
And he frankly told me that as far as he knew, there was no good justification for keeping it secret. So he never told me why he'd actually done this. But shortly after he passed from cancer in 2020, I started getting messages and calls. And it turned out he basically told people to get in touch with me.
Now, this is not uncommon. So I was listening to, I can't remember who it was. He wears the glasses. Bob Lazar. So Bob Lazar said that there's a thing called dead man's trigger. And what that basically means is Bob Lazar is more useful to the government alive than he is dead, for example, because on the event of his passing, for whatever reason, whether it be natural causes or whether it be he gets taken out by someone, this thing called a dead man's trigger is literally like the trigger is pulled and all the information that he has gets uploaded to the internet in multiple places. By which point it will spread like wildfire, which will make it almost impossible for people like, say, the government, the Pentagon, whoever, to control the information. And it sounds like a similar instance here, a dead man's trigger, where this man's passed away, unfortunately, lost his battle to cancer in 2020, and then the dead man's trigger's pulled, and then this information starts to fly out. It's crazy. I'd never heard of it until the other day, and it's interesting that this is also cropping up around the same time.
I found it very, very difficult to accept a lot of what they told me. I still do. I find it mind-blowing that I'm in this position as a serious insect journalist who's spent his career investigating crime and corruption, that I'm on the edge of what is the most fringe subject in the world. But every single one of these people that Nat put me onto was talking about one thing: the program. A highly secret, very, very, very carefully compartmentalised retrieval effort of non-human technology craft, and an identically highly protected reverse engineering program being conducted in secret facilities across the United States.
Wow.
Retrieval teams rigidly compartmented. Operations absolutely need to know. Mind-boggling secrecy. Multiple sources have told me that there was a very clear threat made: if you talk about this, you will be killed. And there are...
This is exactly why Bob Lazar has this thing in place called the dead man's trigger, because now the world knows, and the people who would want him to keep quiet know that if they do try and take him out, then they would have the adverse effect. And what would actually happen is all the information he knows will get blurted to the internet anyways. That could be a red herring. It could be a bit of a lie. I mean, it's a clever lie to tell because obviously it's going to keep you alive, but because no one's going to want to risk it. But at the same time, it's crazy the secrecy that these people are sworn to.
There are allegations. David Grusch has made them as well. I have been told by multiple people that people have been murdered to protect this secret.
Wow.
Make of that what you will. As we all know, politicians, scientists, intelligence community and military whistleblowers are now openly accusing the US government of a massive, decades-long cover-up. They're suggesting the world has been egregiously misled in a deliberate disinformation campaign designed to suppress interest in a phenomenon that, contrary to its public position, the US has always, in fact, taken very seriously indeed. And throughout 2023, as we all know, there's been a determined effort by a bipartisan group of very senior US politicians to try and get legislation through the Congress to force transparency and disclosure provisions into America's annual defence budget. And what finally passed into law mandated some of what might help a government-wide UAP records collection to be held by the US National Archives. But I don't expect for a moment that the agencies allegedly responsible for this massive cover-up are going to willingly hand over what they see as the crown jewels to temporary employees. That's the dilemma you face. It's not my problem. I'm not an American. It's up to you what you do about it. But I'm told this was hidden long ago in private corporate aerospace,
Wow.
in full anticipation that the day would come when Congress would start asking questions.
Wow.
A key provision in the bill that was proposed last year would have mandated eminent domain, the confiscation of UAP-related material. And it was struck down. But the mere fact that senior politicians like Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, one of the most powerful people in the Congress, was prepared to put his name to a document in the Congress talking about the retrieval of non-human intelligence technology. We've passed a tipping point.
Damn straight.
What is very, very unusual about this push in Congress for this greater UAP disclosure on an issue that many people still regard as a fantasy is that it is backed by many high-powered politicians, among them the Democrat Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Republican Vice Chairman of the Senate Select Committee Marco Rubio, the Republican Senator Mike Rounds, the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Cybersecurity for the Armed Services Committee, and the Democrat Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who serves on the Senate committees for both intelligence and armed services. A previous highly respected Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, the late Harry Reid, also played a huge role in pushing Congress to make these laws and to begin aggressively investigating what the government knows about UAPs.
Wow.
Why would two Senate Majority Leaders, members of the so-called Gang of Eight, which is the one group in the Congress that is briefed into all of America's most deep secrets, why would they put their reputations on the line to promote disclosure of a supposedly non-existent, non-human intelligence and technology operating secretly on our planet? Politicians do not put their names to bills unless they have very good grounds for doing so. And there are also lower house politicians pushing for public congressional hearings into UAPs, just as happened in the 1970s Watergate and Church Committee hearings, where whistleblowers would get their chance to testify under oath. And after the Pentagon's UAP Investigation Office, ARRO, issued a report in February...
Dog shit, by the way. It was dog shit. That 64-page document of nothing.
Categorically denying the existence of illicit UAP efforts with retrieved extraterrestrial technology, Senator Gillibrand pledged that she wanted public hearings. She said it's definitely not case closed. Her comments and those of other politicians suggest Congress suggests something is being concealed on UAPs, and it's now determined to investigate. There are extraordinary allegations that have been aired. As we all know, in June 2023, almost a year ago, David Grusch went public with his allegations.
Now, we are going to fast forward to that discussion, because obviously that was so huge. And Ross was the man that ended up actually interviewing David Grusch and presenting that story to the world. And it blew up. It blew the lid off of everything. And it actually re-sparked the conversation about aliens. And, well, not just aliens, but just, you know, extraterrestrials. Even though this had gone very quiet recently. And the snowball effect has really spiraled since then. And it's by far one of the most talked about topics across the internet now.
He basically alleged on both the debrief and also on News Nation with me that the US is running a secretive UAP retrieval and reverse engineering program, and that it is in possession of non-human technology, including craft, along with their dead pilots, biologics, yes, aliens. That's David Grusch's allegations. And he filed...
Well, he never actually labelled them aliens. He said that they were interdimensional beings. That's what they were labelled as by David Grusch himself.
In 2022, a whistleblower complaint with the US Intelligence Community Inspector General. And this has been so misrepresented. Categorically, the US Inspector General of Intelligence and Security... he's the US Intelligence Community Inspector General. He deemed all of David Grusch's allegations, including his allegations of a retrieval and reverse engineering program, as urgent and credible. There's been an attempt to suggest that it was just in relation to his allegations of reprisals. That's not true. The Inspector General of Intelligence specifically found that it was an urgent and credible issue for investigation by the Congress, credible, that David Grusch had made an allegation of a secret retrieval and reverse engineering program. Think about that. That investigation's still ongoing. David also gave hours of classified testimony, and in a secure room for the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence, he named names.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
He gave locations. He's given Congress the names of he knows who are the gatekeepers.
Oh.
And he's made it very, very clear that he's detailed everything about what he knows about the program. He specifically gave evidence under oath. Under oath, so he risks criminal prosecution if he's lied, detailing his allegations to the House of Congress Oversight Committee, explaining that his allegations were based on information he'd been given with individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to their country, many of whom shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony. Weigh that well.
Come on, man. Come on. There is no way that the government can turn around and say that this doesn't exist when this has literally just been exposed again and again and again and again. And these people continue to come forwards. Now, I'm going to stop the video there because I don't want to take all of it, but I highly, highly recommend you go and check it out, the full episode. It is it is an hour and 40 minutes long, so you do, you know, it's a hefty watch. Maybe you can have it on in the background while you potter about and do stuff, but it's so interesting. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to jump to get the hell out of that like button. Subscribe if you're new and tick on my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload to the channel. And until next time, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed. Cannot wait to see you in the next one, and I'll speak to you later. Peace.